This episode of the Sports Illustrated Media Podcast is sponsored by Roman. It can be awkward or embarrassing to talk about erectile dysfunction. Usually we brush it off or blame ourselves, but Roman is here to get you the advice you want and the help you need with no shame. With Roman, you can get a free online evaluation and ongoing care for ED, all from the comfort and privacy of your home. A healthcare professional will work with you to find the best treatment plan. If medication is appropriate, Roman will ship you real medicine with free 2-day shipping. The whole process is straightforward, simple, and discreet. Getting started is simple. Just go to getroman.com/media and complete an online visit. Erectile dysfunction used to be tough to talk about, but now there's Roman. Complete an online visit today to connect with the doctor and take care of it. Just go to getroman.com/media to get $15 off your first order of ED treatment, a free online visit, and free 2-day shipping. Welcome, everyone, to the Sports Illustrated Media Podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Traina. Thanks so much for listening. We have Chris Mad Dog Russo from SiriusXM and MLB Network on the show today. 45 minutes with Dog on about a million topics of him just giving his Chris Russo takes and doing his thing. So it was a lot of fun speaking to him. If you missed last week's show, it was a great one. Mike Tirico from NBC Sports and Steve Kornacki, who's now doing the NBC pregame show to break down the NFL playoffs. Both were on the pod last week. Chris Long 2 weeks ago. So check those out. And if you can subscribe to the media podcast, if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. Very important. All right, let's get right now to the great Christopher Mad Dog Russo. All right, joining me now, one of my favorites always, from SiriusXM on the Mad Dog Sports Radio channel, 3 to 6, Monday through Friday. High Heat, MLB Network. The legendary radio host, Christopher Mad Dog Russo. Dog, how are you?
Oh, Mr. Trainer, how are you doing today? Thanks for the shout out, by the way, that I read about a couple of weeks ago. That was awfully nice. And I'll see if I can track down Mark Schlereth for you on this program today.
Oh, I see your producer, Eddie, was giving you a little intel, because I know you're not listening to Mark Schlereth and Pat McAfee, even on your own channel.
I heard about it. Go ahead.
I was called a turd.
You have, which is not right, which is fair.
Who cares? I don't care. It's fine. It's good. I wish they would have mentioned my name or my column, get a little plug in at least.
Why not? Care. I mean, this is part of the business. You can have some fun with the heck. We're not nuclear scientists.
You were upset because I did the top 10 things I was thankful for in sports media, and you didn't like number 8.
I was number 8. That was the number I was at, right?
It really was a very loose ranking. It wasn't.
Well, you know what I didn't like about it? You can't put your podcast subscribers as number 1 or 2 for crying out loud. That is kissing your rear ends. I understand it's a business scenario, but you can't put them that high, James.
Listen, now that you are doing this podcast, digging up the past for SiriusXM, you're going to see how you need to kiss people's asses to get people to listen to the podcast.
Oh, I understand. I've been killing the channel as it is. I mean, you can't find that damn thing if you look for it all over the place. That's digging up the past.
There's 8 billion podcasts in the world right now. So if you can get someone to listen to yours, you got to kiss their ass a little bit.
100%. It's not that easy. There's so much content.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
There's too many. So what you're telling me is there's just too many podcasts. It's oversaturated.
It's out of control. Everybody has a podcast, Dog. Everybody.
So you really don't have. It's hard to distinguish yourself. I understand.
Very
hard. Interesting.
Yeah.
That is a problem. Anyway,
I can get people to read my column any day. Get them to listen to a podcast. It takes a lot of effort.
Really interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I didn't think too much of it. We did an awful lot of work for that podcast for 4 people, which is a problem, but we'll have to live with Eric in Queens, Eric in Long Island. We'll have to live with that. Anyway, how you doing? Things good?
Yeah, I think things are good. Things are good. You know, this is insane what's going on. So you just try to survive. Before we get into anything, I want to start with the single most important thing that I need to discuss with you more than anything in the world. Did you have the Browns last night?
I did not. And I would have taken the Ravens because I did a big thing yesterday. Everything that happened in the NFL this weekend went against what you're looking for juice down the road. You know, Buffalo kind of clinched the division by beating Pittsburgh. Green Bay won and the Saints lost, which kind of puts the Saints out of it for the top seed. Kansas City doesn't have to beat New Orleans this week to get the top seed. Now the Pittsburgh lost, won the 2 home games against Atlanta and the Chargers. They're going to be the top seed. Minnesota loses to Tampa, which kind of gets Tampa in, Minnesota out. Giants lose to Arizona, and then Washington wins, which takes some juice away from the NFC East. And Arizona now is in very good shape to be the 7th seed in the NFC. You know, New England lost on Thursday, killed them. Miami lost. The Raiders got beat. So you got to put the Raiders out of the mix. So everything that happened on Sunday and then last Thursday were negative. So I would have stuck with that negative trend. So as a result of that, I would have taken the Ravens, but for whatever the reason, I couldn't get into it. Not the game, just the betting aspect of it. So I would have laid low. But if you had, listen, there's always a game like that every now and then where you absolutely get killed. And if you had to, what was the final? 3?
The line was 3 all week. And then before the game, it went up to 3.5. It was 3.5 at a lot of places yesterday.
Well, 3.5. I mean, you really feel terrible about it because not only did you got a break with the line and you're going to win, at least the push. You know what? I was going to probably lose anyway, but that's a terrible way to end the game. And you got to be careful of those kinds of things. You saw it a couple of years ago with Miami when they ran back the kickoff with a touchdown against New England, which helped me in that particular instance. But you have to be careful.
There's a big difference between a kickoff and what happened last night. Last night's as bad as it gets. You can't get worse than last night. That's worse than a Hail Mary.
Was it the Miami thing, a kickoff too, though, and they ran back for a touchdown against New England?
I don't think they were like 30. That play last night was
laterals. Oh, they were laterals.
That play lasted 30 seconds of laterals. That's a long time.
Night.
Yeah.
Last night. Well, the Miami was lateral too that worked. And I had Miami, but you watch enough football, you bet enough, you're going to get killed. I thought the line was 3. If it was 3, it's a push to a loss. If it's 3.5, it's really bad. You saw it coming. As soon as I started throwing the ball around at the 10-yard line, you saw it coming, and you got buried with it. And, ABC got a little confused because they didn't know what the final score was. So if you had the Browns, you said, well, maybe they didn't get a safety out of it, but obviously they did.
I wrote this last week when the Seahawks, the Eagles covered against the Seahawks on a Hail Mary late. And I said, it's ridiculous in this day and age now where you tune into any sports channel or any sports show, there's 5,000 gambling commercials on it. And it happened in Seattle, Philly, and it happened last night where Levy, Greasy, and Riddick don't mention the spread or the swing. They don't even reference it like Al does. Al does it in that sly way, like, oh, that was overwhelming or something. Don't you think these guys have to mention
it?
They
should. Yes, they should. There should be some innocuous inside theme that they understand what the safety meant, especially in this case when the game was over. So the only thing about the safety that is interesting is the point spread. It's not like it won the game for somebody. It's just a point spread theme. Right. And yes, I think Levy in that situation, it's the play-by-plays guy to do that, not the ex-football player. It's the play-by-play guy. So I blame that on Steve. He has to throw it out there. Oh my gosh, if he had the Browns. Now, Scott Van Pelt kind of indicated that on ESPN.
Oh, he more than indicated it, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see enough of him, but I could tell he gave you that look. So right away you knew that he was going to go in that direction. But yes, Steve should have brought up the idea that the point spread was affected. And if the NFL gets mad, well, I don't want to hear from the NFL. They're in bed with all these FanDuel and all these gambling houses anyway. That should have been brought up 100%. That was a hell of a game.
Yeah.
The other thing they did last night that bothered me a little bit, too much on the moral victory thing for the Browns. Mm-hmm. Oh, they proved they can play. Look at Cleveland. You got a football team. They were 9-3. They had a chance to win, to challenge Pittsburgh in the division, to seal the playoff spot, to stay ahead of Baltimore. Now they lose. They're not going to win a tiebreaker from the Ravens, who have 3 easy games. Cleveland could easily lose another one. Giants, Pittsburgh. So, Cleveland could end up as the 7th seed or even worse, not in the playoffs. Right. And so the moral victory thing to me was a little tough to take. But the safety, the overall theme, you're right, should have been mentioned.
Let's talk a little bit about the business of radio. First, tell me about yourself. How difficult has it been doing these shows since March when COVID exploded in this country?
I think, before the show began each day, you said, geez, this is going to be overwhelming. What the hell am I going to talk about for 3-4 hours? I think once I got into it, I figured out that to be a little different, be a little more creative, do a lot of music, which I did, do some politics, a little of that, do some health. And, Chris Christie came on a lot, do some doctors. We did some of that. I tried to break it up as much as I can. I love the opening day thing I did in late March when I put on about 8 guys in 2 days who had all been on teams that got off to great starts. Paul Molitor on the 87 Brewers who won, 13 in a row. Torrey on the Braves who won all those games in a row with Atlanta in 82. Did a lot of that. Did a lot of that Laurel Canyon stuff. I was able to finagle it and maneuver. I don't remember too many times I said to myself, wow, this is a rough show. I was awful. A couple of those, but not that many were. So I'm not doing a good job here. I felt we got through it decently. You had enough to discuss. Golf started in June. You had all the baseball wars with the prorated contract things. That gave me some juice. Yeah. I had a big fight with Yelich one day, so that helped. I got through it okay. I kind of looked at it a little bit as a challenge. The calls were pretty good. They were looking to talk to somebody, get away from the strangeness and the depressing aspect of what this pandemic was all about. So I was able to get through it. I've missed college football because I have not been into the college football.
Well, the season's a complete joke.
Oh, it's a joke. And it's a joke. That's hurt me a lot in the fall. Mm-hmm. The baseball was, amputated. It was kind of weird.
Right.
Legitimate champion. Dodgers were a legitimate team.
Yeah, we disagree vehemently on that one.
Yeah, they were legitimate.
No, they weren't.
Yeah, they were. They would have won anyway. That team's out of a team.
60 games is not a legitimate season.
You're telling me the Dodgers wouldn't have made the playoffs over 162 games?
You don't know what happens with injuries.
Oh,
what if 2 starting pitchers blow their arms out?
Well, they won by 13 games. What, the Dodgers
in 60 listen, making the playoffs is different than winning the World Series.
They won 7 straight divisional championships, the Dodgers. They were not going to win.
It doesn't mean it's a real season when they play 1/3 of the games.
Well, the Dodgers have been in the playoffs.
Probably.
All right. Well, was the playoffs legitimate?
No.
Why not?
Were they playing in home? Were they playing in home field? Were they playing?
Well, that hurt the Dodgers. They had the best record. If anybody that hurt them, they didn't get a home field advantage.
It doesn't matter who it hurts. It's not legitimate. There's no fans. There's no home field. They're doing these hokey second man on second base.
Well, they didn't do that in the playoffs.
This was not a legitimate season.
I think that's unfair. I'll buy the idea that the 60 games was, a little truncated. I'll buy that. But the Dodgers winning the championship when they won 7 straight divisions, had been to 2 World Series, and got through Atlanta and Tampa, Jimmy, I'm surprised.
I'm sorry, I don't agree. I like not agreeing with you.
We disagree on that. What else? What else do you disagree with me on?
No, let's keep it to the radio business for now, because I also want to know, doing the show from home as opposed to the SiriusXM.
I don't like it. I don't like it. I like the lifestyle because you don't have to commute 17 hours a week.
Right.
From Connecticut into Manhattan.
Right.
So I do like that. And that's a lot of time. It's 3.5 hours a day on a train. So you do like that. But the juice of doing it on your 3rd floor is not the same. The connection isn't the same. There are delays with the phone calls. There's a half a second delay.
And what do you have, a producer come to your house every day to do the show?
Once a week. Once a week.
Okay.
When Eddie comes up once a week, we set it up. He reproduces from his house. Somebody else is at their house. You got 3 different locations. So
as someone who's listened to you for 30 years, I never thought I'd ever see you on Zoom.
Well, I had Eddie come up today specifically for you to do this on Zoom so we get on the air properly. But I do miss the energy, the studio, the byplay that you have with live people in the building with you. I don't miss the commute. I mean, listen, I don't have, I can do something between the end of TV and the beginning of radio. I can do something for an hour. I can't do that when I'm in the city. So that aspect of it, I do enjoy, but the vibe of the show is different. There's no other way around it.
Now, if we get through this coronavirus and we get back to normal, whenever it is, who knows, will you do the show every day, Monday through Friday from the SiriusXM studios? Or now that you've done this, would you Well, you've been doing the show. You do the show from home sometimes anyway, right? Before
occasionally, whenever I get the TV, I got to worry about, and I don't do the TV from home.
Right. Okay.
So, I mean, I have to, and the TV, normally I do it in the city.
Right.
So I don't know where I'm going to stand with that. And I can do the radio from home, and I would do it more so from home if there was no television. Mm-hmm. But I don't know where we're going to stand with TV. So it's a little premature. I can't gauge where I'm going to be at that point. I agree with you. We'll probably be in this same scenario here through most of the spring and through the winter, and obviously through most of the spring. I wouldn't think we'd be back anywhere near New York to Memorial Day. Well, eventually, though, we are going to go back. This vaccine's here. I mean, eventually we are going to go back. But how I'm going to handle my life after that remains to be seen. I'm not sure yet. It's a good question.
Now, you've done this forever. You've had as much success as anyone could have in radio. You got a nice little thing now with the SiriusXM show, 3 to 6, nice schedule, high heat. You love baseball. Do you still keep up with all the radio business news and get into that and stay? Like, for instance, do you have thoughts on like Dan Le Batard leaving ESPN? Is that a guy where you'll go to like SiriusXM and executives and say, this is a guy we should try to get? Or do you're at the point in your career where you don't care? You just
like Dan. I know they have spoken to him maybe in the past, so I don't feel like I have to, suggest them, because I do think they know that, he might be available. I'm aware of it. Do I know Dan Le Batard well enough to text him or call him and to talk about it? No, but I am aware of it. I have not listened to Craig and Evan. They're on at the same time I've been on. I did call up when Benigno, his last show, I did call that Friday. I did have Mike on our show here about a month or so when Whitey Ford died, when the Yankees played Game 5 against Tampa. Mm-hmm. I have, I know what's going on with Boomer and Giannotti. But as far as keeping up with it on a day-to-day basis, no, I have not done that. And I know what's happening, but I'm not listening. I'm not that up to. I haven't heard the new morning show on ESPN. I know sure
many people have.
I know they just moved some things around and they cut an hour away and they put 3 people in there to do Canty and those guys to do 5 to 8 or something like that.
Yeah, here in New York, with Le Batard going, they're reorganizing everything, I guess, over there.
So I'm aware of it. I'm aware of it, but I'm not living it day by day. You're sort of in a little bubble. I'm in Connecticut doing 2 shows every day. I'm not that wrapped up, and I'm more worried about my first serve than I'm worried necessarily about what's going on with Danny Le Batard.
Right.
Well,
right.
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah. And we mentioned you're doing this podcast for Sirius, digging up the past. Now that I assume they come to you with that and have to explain what it is, and then you get cracking on it.
Well, what we did with that one was I didn't even know about it. I guess I'm supposed to do a certain amount a year in this contract I signed a year and a half ago.
Way to read the fine print.
I was not even aware of it. I don't mind doing them. I love doing them. We did this one. We're looking for an historical angle. This one was an historical angle, the history of Thanksgiving Day football. We did it in 3 parts. We had everybody on it you can possibly think of with the Cowboys and the Lions, and the history of the franchise, of why they did it, why Thanksgiving football started. We had Parcells on about LT. We did Jimmy Johnson on the Leon Lett game. Jason Garrett, the Giants got me Jason Garrett on his big game against Green Bay in the mid-'90s. We did Mike Pereira on the Luckett thing with the coin toss with Bettis. We did Earl Campbell. He had 186 yards one game against the Cowboys in '79. We did everything you could possibly think of to make it work. We also, from a historical standpoint, I did Joe Brown to talk about why they gave the game to Dallas. I did Howard Katz of why they put the 3rd game up in 2006. He, of course, works the NFL. I did Ernie, my man, Accorsi, about the history of the Lions. I mean, we did a lot on it. So we did a 3-part. We did Belichick chimed in, gave us an audio tape on the LT interception against Danielson, 82 Giants against Detroit. So we got back old Madden sound clips that we had with Madden. If you wanted to know the history of Thanksgiving, we gave it to you. Now, remember, it's got a short shelf life. Right. Because, you're not going to listen to Thanksgiving Day football in March. Right. It's got a short shelf life. It airs aired. I think November 18th was the first air date.
But it's a podcast, so people can listen to it anytime they want.
Yeah, but they're not going to listen to that. Again, that's a Thanksgiving Day theme they're going to get to. Yeah. So I'm not sure where they're going to go, if you're going to be inclined to listen to it. You know, if I do a Big Red Machine one, if I do that next about the Big Reds, and you're going to listen to that, you can listen to the Big Red Machine in October if you want to.
Right.
Because there's let's say one year the Reds are in the World Series, you want to go back to old Reds things, there's the Big Red Machine. Thanksgiving Day football is really only around Thanksgiving.
Right.
But I thought, and Bill Zimmerman did a great job. I did 16 interviews, I think it was. Mm-hmm. We did a good job with it. If you like the podcast genre, we did. I never heard it, but we did a good job with it.
All right, back to the radio business for a sec. Did you you have longevity on your side, you have success on your side, and I think at SiriusXM, you can pretty much do what you want within reason. Did you ever, though, was it ever a challenge? Did you have to debate with yourself about doing stuff on COVID and the election? Because you went there where a lot of sports hosts won't. I've done a lot of COVID. Listen, I don't want to interrupt you, but I don't see how you can cover sports and not do COVID when the sports has been affected by COVID every single day.
100%. But I did COVID. I had a Vanderbilt guy on from the Vanderbilt Health Association. I certainly did. I had this Dr. Robert Wachter on 4 weeks ago out of US, who's the chairman of medicine for Cal. But when you're booking those guests, for you, it's a no-brainer. Let's do this. Let's not shy away from it. Is that your mentality? Yeah, and I didn't worry about it. I did shy away a little bit from social justice and the George Floyd stuff. I mean, I'm not going to get anything out of that. Not that I didn't discuss it at times, right. But if you say the wrong thing and you don't mean it, you're dead. Look at my buddy Grant, the play-by-play guy of the Sacramento Kings, Grant Napier, who got into that Twitter war and he got fired after 31 years. So, I mean, you're finished. So I didn't go there nearly as much with COVID. The election, I didn't do too much with that. I did do Christie. It was either the Friday before, the Monday before, for 40 minutes, because I put Christie on 4 or 5 times.
I've heard him, yeah.
He's good on the air, and I put him on about the election. But overall, I did plenty of music. The COVID some touched social justice barely. A little more of the election. I haven't done any of the election since, right. But I won't shy away. I don't have a problem with it. I thought it was interesting that you revealed who you voted for. Was that a tough decision for you to publicly say that on your show? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I've done that. I've told people before, and I gave the reason. I just think the world needed to settle down. I think I may have said that the day of. It was either the day before or the day of the election. I don't remember which one it was. Mm-hmm. But I did say that. No, I didn't have any qualms about saying that. I don't know if Sirius liked it, because Sirius puts out these memos to all the staff not to bring any politics into the equation, and I don't care. I'm going to tell you what I think, and I'm going to do it in such a way that's going to try to stay out of harm's way. I tried to keep it as light as I could. I tried to keep away from the topics that were divisive. Right. I didn't do too much of Drew Brees. I didn't do too much of the NBA's boycott there at the bubble. But those are sports angles. So if you wanted to go there, at least you could go there. But you're not in there. You're not covering the fact that Trump won't leave the White House right now. No, I didn't cover that. Right. I mean, I did do Bettman twice with the NHL bubble. I did Manfred. I did not get Silver on. You never getting Goodell on. I did Katz on the NFL schedule. I did certainly plenty of draft stuff. I did as much as I could. Your son Colin was on recently and was a big hit. Were you surprised he was getting coverage in the Post. He was getting coverage all over Twitter. Were you surprised that people were so into hearing your son Colin, who sounded just like the old man? I knew he'd be good at it. I was somewhat surprised he got that much juice. I actually just put him on because he's such a Jaguar fan, and he's been living and dying with the Jets trying to get a win, so he gets Lawrence. He loves college football. He got accepted to Clemson. He's been there. He didn't go, but he's on top of the Clemson program, and he loves Lawrence. And I put him on because the day before he was so crestfallen. He's home. I figured instead of me screaming and yelling about about something for a change. Let's do something else. The Raider play fit that Monday because that would have given Lawrence to Jacksonville. So it was a big story. I didn't force it. It worked. I knew he handled it properly.
How bad does he want to get back on now?
Yeah, you know what? He's pretty good. Yeah, he never shy away. He's done a couple of podcasts recently. He's never shied away. He's got, I feel that he could handle anything. He's not great with baseball. He's not going to break down Wimbledon. He's not going to tell you about, Dustin Johnson at the Masters. He's not going to do those kinds of sports. He'll do some baseball. He loves the A's. But the golf, the tennis, loves the MMA, loves the boxing. Is he going
to become a regular with you?
No.
Are we headed that way?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
I don't think I would do that. I don't want to do that. That bad. I don't want to put that kind of pressure on him. Okay, he goes on. He goes on the Morning Man a little bit because he's close to Babchek. Right. Because Evan Cohen, my morning host, went to Wisconsin. Right. And Colin also had COVID and was stuck in a Madison Holiday Inn for 13 days around Labor Day. 4 or 5 of those days, 104 temperature. So from that standpoint, and Evan put him on.
Any lingering? We put him on. Does he have any lingering issues from having COVID?
No, nothing at all.
That's good.
No, nothing. Okay. Nothing lingering.
Yeah.
He came home. He feels obviously liberated from it because he knows he's not going to get it again. He did the antibody test.
Right.
So he's done a pretty good job. He's a pretty smart kid. He loves the sports. I didn't take him last year. I was going to take him to visit the ballparks, the baseball parks. Mm-hmm. I wasn't able to do it. He didn't have a graduation present from high school. I wasn't able to do it. So I told him this year, if there's fans, I said, pick a section of the country, maybe the Midwest, Milwaukee, Minnesota, Wrigley Field, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, or this part of the country, Fenway hasn't been to, Camden, Philly, and we'll do some road trips for you. So we'll see if we can put that together.
The year I graduated college and the year after, 2 summers in a row, me and my buddies got in the car and drove and did the road trip to the stadiums, and it was the greatest thing I ever did, because sadly I'm old enough where I got to see old Tiger Stadium, which does not get credit for being as good a stadium as there was. It's up there with Fenway and Wrigley as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I've been by Tiger on Michigan Avenue, but never inside. Yeah. But everybody says the same thing. And the Fenway thing about Fenway, the thing you don't like about Fenway, you can get stuck in a lousy seat. Where, Wrigley is a little more, it's a little different. Fenway, if you're down that right field line with those poles, it's a lousy seat. But anyway, I thought I might do that for Colin. He's been to Dodger Stadium, he's been to San Diego, and he's been to San Francisco. So maybe not the West Coast, but maybe something in the East or the Midwest.
Scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the least and 1 being the least, 10 being the most. As a SiriusXM employee, when you hear Howard Stern resigns for 5 years, how happy are you?
9 was important. Very important. It was good to, I'm just happy that he still wants to work another 5 years. I'm happy by that. And, anywhere that you're on, that he's on is a plus. I was happy. We knew this was in the process of being negotiated. So the announcement wasn't a shock. He had a sense, the inner workings of the company the last 3-4 months that, if Howard, if it was amiable, this would work. He seemed to be happy. You're worried about the pandemic. Whether he goes, I don't think he's going to come into the studio anymore.
I think him getting to work from home played a factor. Where as a Stern diehard fan, where I got nervous is when the Jim Meyer news came out. For those listening, Jim Meyer basically runs SiriusXM and he's retiring. And I know Howard liked him and had a good relationship. When I heard that, I said, I hope this doesn't mean Howard may say, okay, well, now I'm gone.
Yeah, I didn't think that. I didn't know about the home thing. I know part of him probably likes it at home, but he's all by himself there in his basement, so maybe he does miss.
He likes that.
He does like
that.
It. And he'll never come in again. He's going to be there forever.
No, he's like you. I think he knows there's an energy. He needs Sal and Richard to run. Now, he's not going to come into the studio every day of the week. He may come into the studio once a week, twice a week, one week out of the month. But for antics with Sal and Richard and Gary and all that, he knows he needs to be in there every now and again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had Tirico on this podcast last week, and he spoke very highly of you. And I had Steve Kornacki on, who's doing the little playoff stuff. Isn't that good?
He's good. He's very good,
right?
And he's a good sports fan, because you can tell even on Sunday, he made sure this is a big second half of Pittsburgh, right, in the Buffalo game. So, he is not just a guy who fools around with numbers. He's good. I think he's a big football fan. I don't think it's just.
I had him on last week. He was very good. He was very good.
That's a good spot. That's a good job on your part.
I had him and Tariq on last week. So listen, I know Eddie does your Twitter. You don't do the Twitter.
Right, Eddie does it. Yeah.
So I went on Twitter and I asked my followers if they have questions for you. And surprisingly, a lot of them sent in good questions. I figured this would be a chance for them to
do something different. Go ahead.
So one guy, Ken Gelman, asks, this is a good question. Are you going to do the Super Bowl trivia contest this year? Because who knows if there's going to be fans and a trip to give away with the pandemic. So what's the status of the Super Bowl contest?
Still a little that's a good question, Ken. Still a little undecided. It will be a scaled down trivia thing if we do anything at all, because you're right. There's going to be no tickets. If there's only 20,000 fans, we're not getting 10 tickets. Chris Russo is not going to get the 10 tickets. So you got to remember, it's not just it's not just, if they're going to allow fans, it's how many fans. And it's a small stadium anyway. It's only a 70,000 seat stadium. So we were going to be under the gun to get all those tickets to begin with. But I would think that not yet been completely decided. I think we'll do something. It won't be a full-fledged trivia thing.
All right. Mike Lippert, I hate to admit how much I missed Dog's Oscar previews and movie season roundup. What were your favorite movies of 2020? And your thoughts on the future of movies, which is a very good question because the movie theaters here have been destroyed by the pandemic.
Yeah, I haven't seen a movie in a long time. Like nobody else. I haven't seen anything. I don't even know what came out early last year. I'd have to even go back and look what came out and what I saw in January and February. I have been very into Netflix. Mm-hmm. I watched. Do
you know how to work the Netflix? Or you have to have your kids do it.
I know how to work it. I watched 66 episodes of The Old Americans, which I had never seen.
Right.
Very good. I watched I watched all of The Crown except for season 4, which I'll get to. I caught up on 2 seasons of Homeland, which I had gotten off of, and I watched that. Right now, I love the HBO The Undoing. I certainly watched that. And right now I'm getting into Yellowstone because that's very good with Costner. I watched the first season of that. So
yeah, a lot of people do. I'll tell you what you did at the beginning of the pandemic. This isn't a movie or Netflix thing, but I was with you on this. You were talking every day about how you would every night you would watch All in the Family.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
And I've done that myself through this pandemic. That show is as good as it gets.
Yeah, I haven't watched it recently, but I watched the first 4 or 5.5 seasons. Phenomenal show. And I watched a lot of the musical documentaries. I watched the Bee Gees one last night on HBO. Have you seen that?
I'm going to watch it either tonight or tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah,
it's good. It's good. I've gone back to watch the old stuff on video with, I even sat there a couple nights in a row and watched Costas do Later with Costas on Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Roger McGuinn.
You love that old music.
I've been texting Bob and I've been telling Bob about that. So, I have, I filled the shows, but the Netflix, I finished the Ozarks. Is another one.
Yes.
So I have watched a ton of stuff on the Netflix. And again, right now I'm in the Yellowstone. Have you seen Yellowstone?
I have not, but everyone says it's good. I know I got to check it out. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Very good.
This is a funny question by Chris Fenthal. I don't think it's meant to be answered, but he knows you love your travel scenarios. Will Chris be breaking down the travel itinerary of the COVID vaccines?
Yeah, I know. It's funny. You'll laugh at this. I have a workout guy who has since last week went to Florida for the winter, who is a former huge bigwig at Pfizer.
Okay.
So he told me, and Eddie Erickson be my witness, probably about 6 weeks ago, status reports on the virus, on the vaccine. So I would tell people on the air, well, we're closer than you think.
Right. I heard you.
He told me where the vaccines were located, where they were shipped from. He gave me the exact dates. And then when I had the Watka on, the doctor from California, just to check Dean to make sure he's giving me the right information, I threw it up to Watka. He said, your friend got it right on the button. Because he told me 2 shots within 21 days.
Right.
He gave me everything. So I was on. So I did. I've been on the vaccine thing. I like what Greasy said last night. He woke up and he's having his breakfast and he saw the first big UPS truck at some warehouse. Again, I think that by April 1st, you and I, Jimmy, will be able to get a shot by April 1st.
And you've already said you want it right in your fanny, right?
I said that. I think, this idea that I'm not going to take these shots. Why would anybody not want to take it? It's 95%. You're that mistrustful of the government?
Well, I don't know. I don't necessarily. I wouldn't put it all necessarily on the government. I think there are a lot of people. I'm one of these people. I'm not a big medicine guy. I think it does a lot of things. Now, this is a different situation. Obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic, but there are people who run to the doctor for every little thing and they get medicine, and there's people who are not medicine people. So but this is a different, obviously, situation. So, what I get a lot of people asking if you like the Sour Shoes impressions.
Yes.
I don't know. People should know that. This is a good question from someone named Calabrese. I love how Dog always busts the chops of his coworkers and even SiriusXM management. Does anyone ever get offended, or has he ever been told to tone it down on a specific person? He always says he's kidding, but I'm sure he can land wrong sometimes.
You know what? There's always a germ of truth. Never has anybody, and Eddie Erickson be my witness, they may not like it, but nobody has ever said anything to me, Chris, can you lay low here, please? Now, nobody. So whether that's the GM, whether that's the CEO, whether that's whoever that might be. And I don't go too crazy on it, but I do. And I love to pick on Tory and Spitz and all the guys who work for the Cohen and all the company guys. So I don't have any problem doing that at all. And nobody ever says anything. They never give me grief. That's why it's a great place to work, Jimmy. You know that.
Yep.
It's a great place to work.
A lot of people asking about Sour Shoes. It's amazing how much people like it.
No problem with it. Yeah. And he calls me once in a while too. But it's funny with one thing about Sour Shoes that's interesting. I've been on Stern 5 times, but since Sour Shoes does a lot of Howard, it's almost like Howard doesn't need me on because he gets his Chris Russo fix out of Sour Shoes.
Right.
So it's almost like Sour Shoes steals my spots with Stern because Howard talks to Sour Shoes, doesn't need to talk to me. That's the one thing I do regret.
There you go. I have to say though, Howard hates sports so much, so I think it's tough to get a guy like you on regularly.
I agree. I don't expect it.
I figured we'd end with this. Let's fight about Tony Romo. There's no one in America who hates Tony Romo more than Chris Mad Dog Russo.
Let me ask you a question. Did you see that Kansas City Tampa game a couple weeks ago?
I did. And the fawning over Brady was way too much.
You did not have a problem with that?
I just literally said the fawning over Tom Brady was way too much.
And never brought up the handshake the week before against Goff at midfield.
I don't get all worked up about the handshake.
That was Mahomes when he had shook his hand. He shook him that night.
But I'm saying I don't really care who's shaking hands with who after games. It's so irrelevant to me.
I wouldn't care that much, but I've never seen Goff shook his hand after the Super Bowl. I don't know. I had a problem, but again, whether you care about it or not, shouldn't it be mentioned in a 4-hour broadcast that Brady was under the gun this week?
Yeah. That's a fair criticism.
And they were, did Tony, because he talked to Brady on the Friday, they get access before the Chief game. Did they kiss his rear end that day?
They kissed his rear end for three and a half hours.
I couldn't take it. So that bothered me.
So let me ask you a question.
He does overwhelm the game, though. He does overwhelm the game.
I think he's been told to do that because he's very popular. People want to hear from him. So I don't know if that's him necessarily. I think CBS is pushing that hard. They gave him $17 million a year to call these games. He's going to overwhelm the game.
Right. He is. I understand that, but I just think he's got to loosen up, let the game breathe a little bit. Anyway.
If you were programming an NFL network that airs games, who would be your top team in the booth? Who would be your? It doesn't have to be a team that's together now. Who's your play-by-play person? Who's your analyst today?
I tell you, who I've always liked anyway. Who's very good, and I think he's almost underrated because he's been there like a old shoe forever. Aikman does a hell of a job.
Oh, he's great. He's great. He's great. I think he's the best. After Romo, I think he's the best.
He's got a great presence about him. And here's the thing about Aikman. He doesn't overwhelm the game. He doesn't blow away the game. You don't leave the broadcast thinking that Aikman didn't let the game breathe.
And he's also not afraid to take shots at the players, which is a big problem.
The only negative I have with Troy, you can tell when he's upset when the Cowboys are losing. because he does
fine.
a Cowboy game, and he's done 2 Cowboy games in the last 3 weeks, and they lost both games. Washington on Thanksgiving, and he did the game against Baltimore, and you can tell he was frustrated as hell. But you got to give him that. He's a Cowboy. Yeah. But I love Aikman. The play-by-play guys, there's a lot of good ones. Nance they're all good. I mean, in their own ways. I mean, they're all good. Michaels has got the longevity. Buck is Buck, and of course, Nance is great. Ian does a good. They're all very, very good. Yeah. I don't want to go crazy and distinguish one over the other. Let me think who I would like. Life on the line. If I had to hear one of them, let me see if I can give you one that you wouldn't have heard of. Well, you've heard of them, but there's something different. Is there one that kind of? I guess I got to take Michaels, but I wish I could come up like the 14th guy who's good. I
understand. Yeah.
But I do love Aikman. I do love Aikman.
I will end it on this. I got a question here from Dan Corrado. Wants to know if you were ever able to discern whether or not Daredevil is based on a true story.
Yeah, I know. That's the end thing.
Out of all your gaffes over the years, what's the one you always hear about the most from fans?
The duck was funny, when going around the track racing the duck. When I did that's one. The 49-3 Super Bowl with Buffalo and the Giants when they had the game 49-3 or 49-13, 49-13.
Yeah.
And it turned out the Giants won. I've always heard that. That's 2. I probably. Let's see. I got in trouble once with the whole thing with Mike Keenan and Neil Smith, with Keenan leaving and Bettman getting in the way. And Bettman put the document out there about Keenan leaving and who was going to get the draft picks. That is one. I've never heard from Pat Riley when we killed Pat about leaving via the facts.
Right.
Never had Pat on since.
But what do the listeners and fans always bring up to you? Like the Daredevil thing, true story. Like you get anything like that the fans are always bringing up?
Yeah, the 49-13.
Yeah.
The fans, what do they bring up that is interesting? It's been a while now with Mike.
Say something funny.
Say something funny. Yeah, always get to say something funny. Yeah, I get a lot of people who just missed the byplay between the two of us.
Yeah.
I get a lot of, and I'll tell you right now, when Mike came on, did you hear that, Spot?
I did. I tweeted about it. Yes.
Oh, he was tremendous.
Yeah.
I mean, he had Whitey and he had Game 5 Yankees, which he nailed completely about Chapman. He was worried about Chapman, and they gave up the home run in the 8th inning. Right. Mike was so good that day, and when Mike is that sharp, my God.
But that's the enigma of Mike. It's like, why when he's by himself does he sound like he's just the most unhappiest person on the planet? And then he's with you, and well,
I mean, he hadn't been with me for a long time. He hadn't talked in the air for a long time, so I got him when he was sharp as a tack that day. Keep that in mind. I'm trying to think if there's one that is it really. If you don't have one,
I know, because I know you got to go do your show. I know you don't care, so that's why I'm bringing it up. I wouldn't do it to insult you. I know you don't care, and I find it funny. And you're not on Twitter, but I'm sure, do Eddie and your son or whoever, do they give? A lot of these current players are not a fan of you mispronouncing the names, botching, saying that. Are you aware of that?
No, I'm not. Doesn't surprise me.
Let me tell you a quick story. I had a player. There was a player. I don't want to name the player because I didn't tell him I was going to do this, but there's a former player who's now in media, baseball media, ripped you on Twitter for mispronouncing names or something. I sent him a tweet and I said, he mispronounces everyone's names and every word. He's done it for 30 years, And he's like, well, if he's on MLB Network, shouldn't he say the names right? I'm like, it's not part of your shtick. It's just, that's the natural way you are, blah, blah. And, it wasn't a disagreement. The guy sends me a message like 2 weeks later and says, I watched the 30 for 30 on Mike and the Mad Dog. I love Chris Russo now.
Wow.
True story, as you would say.
That is fascinating.
Yep.
That is interesting. I do think, forget the radio.
Right.
Because the radio.
Well, that's the issue. The issue is you're on the MLB channel and these players are watching it. Yeah.
That's it. A lot of the younger guys, Jimmy, they don't get me.
Right.
They don't go back to FAN. They're not popping on Sirius. They're not paying attention to the daily machinations of how we're doing shows. And then I hear me screw up a name, and I said, I can't take this guy seriously. Who is this guy? I don't know what he's talking about. And so that could turn people off. I can understand that.
Yeah.
If you know me, it's part of the deal. Everybody knows I know who won the 1939 World Series.
Well, there was a show a couple of weeks ago. You couldn't say Gronkowski's last name. I made sure to put that on Twitter.
Yeah, I get them all, but I don't hear it so much from the football. You're right.
No,
I
it's
hear
baseball.
It from the baseball. I hear
because you're on their network. Yeah.
I'm on their network, and they take that and they look at that as a lack of knowledge with the baseball. And I would tell those guys, if you think that's the case, go watch that 17-minute interview I just did with Al when he won the Ford Frick Award. Did you see the Jim Palmer one I did that day?
I didn't see Jim Palmer. I know about Al, obviously, because
Schmidt. I just did Schmidt last week because I did something on Dick Allen. But I do understand that. That's fascinating that you said that. A baseball guy who now gets it. How about that?
After watching the 30 for 30. Yep. Yeah. All right. I'll let you go do your show. Anything you want to get off your chest before you go do your show?
How's Sports Illustrated doing?
We're doing well. We are. We've cleaned up some of a little bit of a mess we had. We just hired Howard Beck, who's very good. I know you're not.
He's very good. Yeah. Beck is excellent. Yep. Yes.
So I had me personally. Once football came back, my web traffic September, October, November was tremendous. Almost better than ever since I've been doing this column, and I've had great guests on the podcast. So we are.
How many podcasts? What are you doing? One podcast a week? How many podcasts you do?
Once a week. Yeah.
And the podcast world is impossible. You're telling me, huh? There's just too much out there.
Well, listen, you have the top people. There's the top people who they get millions of listens, but if you're in that middle rung, you've got to really just carve out your niche.
You're gonna get lost.
It's very hard. First of all, it also a lot of it depends where you work. Sports Illustrated isn't known for podcasts. We're known for writing, so it's a hard. But I have to say, the people I get on who are in media, they're very nice. They come on, they do it. They don't have to. We've had the run of guests I've had lately, Herb Street, Nance, Tarico, who else has been on recently? Buck comes on,
But those are four heavyweights right there.
Ian comes on, I get good guests, which is nice. And, I'm not trying to do like a gotcha podcast. I like to have a conversation more than question, answer. So, it's hard to break through because there's just so many out there.
Yeah. Interesting. Make sure you watch the Bee Gees.
I will watch that tonight or tomorrow night for sure.
Very good.
It's been hard to watch stuff because there's football on every night with the scheduling going crazy. So you get a night like tonight, there's no football. I'll probably watch the Bee Gees thing.
You got to keep it up.
Yeah.
All right, Jimmy.
Thanks, dog. Have a happy
you too.
Happy
holidays
and New Year.
Not dead now. Okay, buddy.
Thanks. All right, my thanks to the Mad Dog, Chris Russo. Great conversation. Love when the dog gets rolling, and he had his energy today, that's for sure, as always. If you missed last week's show, Mike Tirico and Steve Kornacki were both on the SI Media podcast. Great interviews with each. Kornacki now doing the NFL, NBC pregame and halftime show there, breaking down the playoff picture, so it was fun to talk to him. Chris Long 2 weeks ago. So check those out and subscribe to the podcast. If you've missed any, go into the archives and check those out. All right, again, my thanks to Chris Russo. And we'll see you next week right here on the SI Media Podcast. Take care.